Well, welcome today. Before we get started in our conversation, I just want to say who we are at CBF. Corporate Baptist Fellowship is a Christian network comprised of individuals and churches that work together to spread the hope of Christ. For 30 years, CBF has been driven by its mission to serve Christians and churches as they discover and fulfill their God given mission and to live into our vision to be a national and global community bearing witness to the gospel in partnership with Christians across the nation and around the world. And today, as part of the work of outreach and growth of CBF, one of the aspects of this new department or new body of work is inclusion. And today we will have a conversation with the Reverend Dr. LaTonya Penny, who is a senior pastor of Belonging Fellowship Ministries in North Carolina. And so, LaTonya, we'd like to welcome you today in this conversation. And the topic for today is around being inclusive with those that are differently abled. So,
Thank you for having me.
so LaTonya, let's go ahead and get into. Let's share with us, why is this important? Why should churches care about including those folks who are differently able?
So I'm going to answer that in two ways. The first reason that it's important to me is I have the privilege of parenting two children who have special needs, and I'm also a pastor. So the parent in me has always been the advocate in schools and in other settings. And I never realized I would have to be the advocate in faith communities until I had to do so. So the second reason this is important is because we are called to take care of all of God's children. We're called to create community, koinonia community of love and fellowship with everyone. And so often, persons who are differently abled are pushed to the margins, overlooked, and forgotten. And another reason is because at some point, all of us may experience some form of disability or some form of a mental health condition. It is important for us to see that everybody is equal and everyone has a right to belong as a part of the body of Christ.
Amen. Amen. You know, what's interesting is, I pastored in DC for several years, and I know the conversations that I had around participation of folks that are differently abled seem to be structured around or focused on accessibility. You know, how can we make sure that folks in wheelchairs can enter into a building, can have access to a bathroom, to be able to get to a fellowship hall that may be on a different floor. But I think when you talk about the inclusion of differently able, I think your approach seems to be a little bit more holistic. Can you share about your approach to inclusion?
Sure. So not only am I a pastor, I am the Associate Director of Church Services for All Belong. And our approach is completely different. My doctoral work is completely different. It is one thing to have a building that has accessibility. You have a ramp outside, you have parking spaces. You may even have a push button door that swings wide open, and you may think that you have all the boxes checked. But what happens once the person enters your sanctuary? What happens once the person decides to join your congregation? What do you have in place for those who may have difficulty hearing the service? What do you have in place for those who may not be able to see the service? What do you have in place for those who aren't able to enjoy the service because of sensory things? There's so many things that we don't think of that, yeah, you're accessible, but are you creating a space where I can belong? Are you creating a space that is nurturing to me? Are you creating a space that is truly welcoming, that I'd even want to come back? So we have to move beyond the building accessibility and really focus on being the community, creating those safe spaces of belonging where we can all be a part and not be excluded, but a part of that community and a part of that faith family. So yeah, my work and my doctoral work is a womanist theology of differently able, a radical hospitality. And we have to go beyond those basic needs of just saying, hey, you can come in. We have a door that you can, get your wheelchair through, to saying, what do you need from us? How do we create this space for you? What can we do to be the hands of Christ for you?
Fabulous. Can you give us some examples of how churches can be more inclusive, like outside, as an extension of accessibility?
Sure. One thing that many churches don't think about is table, coming to the table together, celebrating communion and our the body and the blood of our Savior. What if I have a gluten allergy? So I was working with our director of church services at another church function, and she shared with me how she couldn't partake in communion. And I was like, why couldn't you? She said, I have a severe gluten allergy, and their communion wasn't gluten free, or they didn't even know if it was gluten free. So that one little wafer could have sent her to the hospital. So even though she's in this sanctuary, she's been a part of this service, she's excluded from the table. Something so simple as buying some gluten free communion could have made her feel like she was a part of that community. So people think it is changing everything that we do and making sure we've included all these programs, when it's really thinking about the little things that you can do to make a difference. Gluten-free communion is not that expensive. I don't say you have to buy it for everyone, but making sure you have the option so that people can participate. Another thing to think about is the sound of your services. Uh, so I had the privilege of working with another faith community, and they had a young man that a young boy, he was probably 9, that he was a runner. As soon as he loved service, he wanted to be in service. He loved worship. He loved every part of it. He was nonverbal, but you could tell in his eyes that he enjoyed service. But as soon as the pastor got up to preach, he would take off running. And so they brought me in, and I sat and I watched. I went to 2 services, and I realized he's not the only one that wants to take off running. It wasn't that the preacher couldn't preach. The microphone was so loud. See, when worship was taking place, the service had a little bit more control over the sound. But it was something about that voice and that microphone. It really, even my daughter, who has sensory processing disorder, had to plug her ears, and she hadn't done that in a long time. Knowing that and bringing that report back, the pastor was unwilling to turn the microphones down. So this family realized, we told you what the problem is. You brought in, we brought in someone to examine the problem. And now that we've identified what our son needs, you're not even willing to turn a microphone down a little bit. And it was so loud that even adults began to wear headphones and sit in the back of the church. And they had to find those little dead zones where the sound kind of dampens so that they could figure out how they could still enjoy service. So, what does that say to the family and to this child if the leadership isn't willing to make changes or a small adjustment for them to belong? So that's what I'm saying. It's trying to figure out, what do we need? What do we do to support the people in our faith community? And how can we truly create that safe and loving space that they want to belong?
Yeah. And I hear you. What about the folks that say, Reverend Penny or Dr. Penny, I hear you, but where is this in scripture? Talk to me about scripture, because we're Bible believing people, and we're willing to maybe try to find some way for people to have accessibility, but do we go that extra mile? How does scripture talk to us about that?
So I would challenge the question and say, where is it not in scripture?
Okay.
So let's walk with Jesus in the New Testament,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Jesus comes in the scene already with people that other folk don't want to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is already dealing with lepers who he's not supposed to go near. Jesus is already saying, what you've done to the least of these, you've done it unto me. Jesus is teaching us that that we're all a part of the body of Christ, and whatever part of the body is weak, we're supposed to be there for that part of the body. So it's all throughout Scripture. Now, there is nowhere in the Bible that says You have to be inclusive with persons with
Right.
disabilities. There's no line, there's no scripture I can say to
Mm-hmm.
you that says you must have gluten-free communion. None of that's in the
Mm-hmm.
Bible. But Jesus has moments of
Yeah.
teaching that teaches each of us that we are to love everyone.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest commandment is to love, right? And if I'm to love, that is to create that
Mm-hmm.
space. That is to create a place where you can receive the love that I have to offer. And even when they turned to Jesus and said, "Who sinned that this man should be born blind, the mother or the father?" What does Jesus say? It is for my Father to be glorified.
Yeah.
It's not that anyone did anything wrong. It's not that this man is broken. It's for God to get the glory
Yeah.
and for us to see God in everyone.
Yeah.
And so, for those pastors who ask me that, by the time I've said, "Tell me where it's not in the scripture," and I start, quoting some words of Jesus, they kind of go, "Okay, yeah, I think we're supposed to be doing this." Yeah, you're supposed to.
Okay.
It is a part of that radical
Yeah.
hospitality. So I think about, my work is, the men who are carrying, or the people carrying the man on the mat.
Mm-hmm.
And they get to wherever Jesus is and they look around and the crowd's too big. And so they decide to climb the roof and, lower him down to Jesus. Jesus doesn't say to the man, "Hmm, you got this mat down here all by yourself. You're great." No, he says it. He says it is the actions of the ones carrying
Yeah.
him. It is their faith. It is their effort. So we are called to be the ones carrying the
Yeah.
mat. We are called to be the ones ripping open ceilings
Mm.
and lowering people and bringing people right in front of
Mm.
Jesus.
Amen.
Can you tell this is
Just a little bit. I appreciate the past because I was like, okay, I'm getting excited about
my?
this, and as a person who has pastored, I appreciate the passion, and expanding the understanding of the need to be more radically inclusive and have radical hospitality. So so who ought to care in the church? I mean, who if a church wants to get started, or if an individual is listening to our conversation and they feel like they want to do something in their home church, who should be at the table? Who should be asked to be assembled?
So I tell churches it usually just depends on your community and how your community functions.
Mm-hmm.
But if your pastor's not at the table, it's going to be real hard.
Mm-hmm.
If your leadership team, whether that's your deacons, elders, whoever your deciding partners are, if they're not at the table, it's going to be very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have parents of children who have different needs, or a person who is differently abled at the
Mm-hmm.
table, it's going to be very hard. So what we can't do is say all the able-bodied people have a meeting and go, let's create a program for them, right? That is not what we want to do. We don't want to go, let's go create an autistic Bible study. No, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
It is bringing everyone together and saying, what do we need to create
Mm-hmm.
together? And so for our faith community at Belonging Fellowship, of course, you have me as an advocate, and my husband is also an advocate. But we also have my children at the table asking, what is it that we can do that makes you more comfortable? What is it that you would like to see happen? It is about including people and giving them agency, of being able to share what they need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can create all the programs in the world. If it's not the right
Mm-hmm.
fit, they're not coming back.
Right.
But if you create relationship
Mm-hmm.
and commit to making a difference, one family at a time, they'll be committed with you. So you need your leadership at the table. You need the pastor at the
Mm-hmm.
table, and you need people of varied abilities at the table making those
Okay.
decisions.
And you mentioned All Belong. Can you tell us more about All Belong? One, tell us about it and how and why you were attracted to All Belong.
Sure. So All Belong is a has a very special place in my heart. I first heard about the organization at a conference where I heard Barb Newman speak, and she was talking about universal design and how you are to create space for anyone who comes. So universally, just have these things available and ready. And I was just amazed. I went up to her and said, I'm supposed to be doing what you're doing. And ironically, and I will share this, I walked up to her and said, I kind of do this in North Carolina, but I'm supposed to be the Black Barb. And she goes, okay. So I started reading all of her work, and I was like, no, you don't get it. I've been doing this on a very small
Mhm.
level with a very small nonprofit.
Mhm.
This is what I've been trying to
Mhm.
teach in my community. And she and I began to have this friendship, and ultimately she became my mentor and brought me into what is now All Belong. She transitioned last year, and so and I've been able to take a bigger role at the agency. But All Belong has two main divisions. We have a school side and a church services side.
Mhm.
And I work on the church services side. The church services side wants to be that place and is that place to give you all the training that you need, to give you all the resources that you need. And if we don't have it, we create it, right? If there's something your faith community is struggling with and we've never seen it, we'll come study
Mhm.
it. And so we're a team that is committed to helping faith communities become inclusive and to create communities of belonging.
Mhm.
We want to be able to say that your church really is trying their best and learning as much as they can to serve the body of
Mhm.
Christ. So we offer many different services and memberships. And once you have a membership, you have access to everything,
Mhm.
right? And to all the staff. And so we don't just say, here, come hang out with us, but you are assigned a consultant such as myself who you can pick up the phone and say, "Hey, we have a kid that's running. Can you come figure out why, or can you give us some assistance?"
Mhm.
Or we have a curriculum that we have concern about. Just a place where we're truly trying to create that
Mhm.
community and help people find those safe places to belong.
So, if a church again listens to this conversations and say they want to do something different, um, how do they? What's first steps that they do with I'll Belong, and what takes place?
Sure, they can visit our
Mm-hmm.
website and they can join. It's join as a member church. And for, I'm not trying to do a commercial, but but it's $500 a
Mm-hmm.
year, but it gives you full access to all of
Mm-hmm.
us. And for me, that isn't a whole lot of
Mm-hmm.
money. $500, some people spend that on one Bible study series. So visit our website, allbelong.org, and just go to the church services side, click on membership, and it'll lead you through. Or you can reach out to me. I'll make sure you have all of my information, telephone number, as well as email, so that you can talk directly to me if you have, and with me if
Mm-hmm.
you have questions. We can set up a time to talk. It is all about trying to figure out how we can
Mm-hmm.
serve our churches better.
Yeah. Well, I think also too. I guess one of the other things you can tell us about the site study, which I think is unique. Again, that it's a more holistic approach, looking outside of just accessibility. Because I know I pastored a church in a historical building, and in the Washington D.C. area, and we were grandfathered in terms of having to make certain requirements because of the age of our building, with the exception if we decided to do major renovations, right? And again, everything was about how to access spaces. But I think what you all do in terms of site studies also may be helpful for congregations to understand.
Sure. So we do offer what we call our site studies, where we can come into your service and into your faith community, not just to look at your building. We do take a look at your building, but we are looking at how you do service. And we look for things that the typical person isn't looking for. We are there for several days. Some studies can be a Wednesday through a Sunday. It just depends. We can do workshops while we're there. We can help you with whatever the needs are. But our goal is to really take a look at how you are implementing service. What is it about your preaching? Is it something in your Bible study? Um, are you inclusive from the pulpit to the back door, right? So we're really taking a look at your entire faith community and programming. From your youth ministry, is it inclusive? What is your teaching style? Are you using different ways to teach? Are you putting a 16-year-old who's on the spectrum and may be on a the IQ level of a third grader? Are you putting the 16-year-old in with third graders? Or are you really trying to create community with other 16-year-olds, right? So we take a look at all of that, and we come back and give a team analysis. We work together to review everything. And then we have a report of our suggestions for things for you to implement. The good thing about that is we don't just leave you with that. We're there to help you implement that. So once we've done our site study, we're able to make those suggestions. We're able to give you guidance on what resources to use, what book studies you might be able to use to teach your faith leaders, as well as being with that site study is part of that is, being a member. It's also plugging you into some of the training that we're doing on a regular basis. We do book studies all year long so that you're having access to learn more, develop more, and not have to look all over. But we're creating those training sessions so you can really not just learn a little bit, but to grow and grow those roots deep, so that you're really understanding it's not about accessibility. It is about, I hate to put it this way, that feeling that I'm wanted, and that feeling that I'm welcome, the feeling that I belong, and that you really, really want to have a relationship with me. So at the end of that site study, we do, again, that analysis and make sure you have that final report. And we follow up with your team to see how we can, best guide you on the next part of implementation to belonging. We really do want to move past this checkbox of we have this in place, we have that in place, and we want to really have people think about how are we creating those safe spaces of belonging. So we really focus on two different types of design. One is called universal design that I mentioned, that Barb coined, that we are preparing for whoever may come. So already having the communion available, already having fidgets available, already having things in place in case someone comes. My specialty is responsive design. And that is once you identify the needs of a particular person or of a particular family, we are responding to those needs. One of the other specialties is creating those care teams so that just like a child may have an IEP team at their school, individualized education plan, and they're getting assistance at their school, how do we implement some of that in the church so that that child's language is consistent? So if the teacher has words that they use to help the child or a process or technique, how can the Sunday school teachers use that so it's a cohesiveness for the child from home to school? So we're working to really help families create that cohesiveness and that community that everyone needs. And I want to say that many times we focus, or people think that we focus only on children, and they think that disability ministries or inclusive ministries are really youth oriented. Some churches are, but I want us to really think about those who are declining in health, those with dementia, the children that grow up and are now adults on the spectrum, and how we can begin to serve them. And the more we think holistically, the more we see somebody's in our church, somebody's in there already that needs these services. Quite often, pastors will tell us, "Oh, I don't have anybody with disabilities in my church." And I usually say, "Invite me to preach and let me sit in the pulpit. And within 5 minutes, I can probably identify, can't diagnose, but I can probably identify a few. Not in a wheelchair, not, not physical, but I could probably identify something that is apparent to me that you aren't picking up the signs, because they may not come up and tell you, I struggle with ADHD. They may not come up and tell you that I have cognitive delays, but sometimes you can see in their eyes where they're struggling, and you can feel it in your spirit that they're not connecting the way others are connecting. And that's when we have to be willing to create those relationships.
It's so funny because that was actually one of my follow-up questions for the pastor, for the Sunday school teacher, or the deacon that may be listening to this conversation. It says that we don't have anybody that's differently abled in our congregation. And my question was going to be, or is still, if there's something else you want to add to that, what would you recommend they do, or what would you say? How would you respond to that? Yeah.
Yeah, and so even my answer is usually that sarcastic answer. Um, Even if you don't, somebody may come.
Right.
So why not prepare?
Yeah.
Or are you missing an opportunity to minister to a population that isn't present because you don't have these things in
Mm-hmm.
place? So it may be bigger than just who you see on a
Mm-hmm.
Sunday. It's who you're not
Mm-hmm.
seeing on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the mom and dad who came once with their child and the child screamed too loud, or, whatever the things that may happen in service that people turn and look at you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they didn't feel welcome.
Yeah.
And so they didn't come
Yeah.
back. So it's maybe who's not there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we need to have this
Yeah.
conversation. And how do we create that for them to be a part of it?
Yeah.
So I think that is ultimately, there's two things that most people say. Well, how much is this going to cost? It's $500 for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, you blow money on much. Maybe your decoration budget can be trimmed for $500. Second thing they say is, well, I don't have any disabled people in my church. Well, okay. There might be someone who has a disability that you just don't know about. We focus on the disabilities we can see
Yes. Yeah.
when there's so many invisible disabilities
Mm-hmm.
that you can't see,
Mm-hmm.
but they are
Mm-hmm.
experiencing. And so if, for example, my daughter Taylor, if she walked into a room, you really wouldn't know she has cerebral
Mm-hmm.
palsy. You wouldn't know until she's played basketball for 30 minutes and she collapses on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know that she is dyslexic and has other learning disabilities by looking at
Mm-hmm.
her. But it's once you have that relationship with
Yeah.
her that you realize she needs a little extra help,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really trying to get pastors and leaders to understand you might, and if
Yeah.
1 in 3 people in the world have a disability, let's count 1, 2, 3. There's one.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
there. They just haven't told you,
Yeah.
and maybe they don't feel safe telling you.
Yeah. I think this very timely learning about the work that you're doing in the ministry that you have, because I think it's been since 2020 and the lockdown, there's been a growing awareness, right, or even increasing some challenges for folks. And so, thank you for sharing. And if a church has decided and feels called or convicted to move in the direction of preparing, whether or not they know somebody is differently abled or not, and they decide to prepare, how do they let someone know? How do they let that community know that they want to be radically inclusive and radically welcoming in that congregation? That they've taken, some classes, they invited you and the team in to do an assessment. They've taken some classes and they're prepared. How do they know? How do they share the story that that all are really welcomed?
They share the story.
Okay.
It should be on your website.
Okay.
It should, from every aspect of your ministry, look at your website. Is someone represented on that website in the pictures that say, "Oh, I can be here. My wheelchair is welcome," right? Um, Even having a tab on your website to inform what accommodations you can make or that you have in place. It's letting people know. So it's no need to get all this training and put it in a box and never tell anybody that you have it. It's welcome. It's really connecting with local support groups and saying, we've got this in place for maybe it is the Down syndrome support group. We're reaching into that community, whatever community organizations, it's telling people that we care, we are ready, and we want to learn and we welcome you. And one thing that I also want to say is just speak about it. Pastors need to teach about it. Um, we teach the healing narratives of Jesus, in such damaging ways that it's all about your faith and your faith has made you whole. But what does that mean for someone who never receives a physical cure? And you're preaching, oh, it's just in your faith, just believe it. What are you doing to that person? So it's really more than, again, that building. it's how you're treating people, what you're teaching them, and how you're feeding that soul. So my question to pastors really begins with, so how do you teach those texts? And, tell me what you would say to a mom who has been praying and praying and her child still can't walk. So what are you going to do? So it's really taking the time to learn that what we say matters, and how we implement things and what we learn, we need to tell people we're really trying. So, and one thing I would also add is we have been using differently abled, you and you know that that is my preferred use. That may not be the preferred use of someone who has a disability. Um, it's learning that person first language, that you're not saying the disabled boy or that autistic child. It's the child with autism or the child who is differently abled. It is allowing those who are able to self identify with what they choose to identify with. So for me, the reason I choose differently able is that's what my children prefer. My daughter doesn't want to know doesn't want to be, walking around saying, I have CP or, all of that. She just tells people I'm differently abled. So it's even knowing when to use that and when not to use that, or how to use that language. So I just wanted to point out that we are intentional because this is the language that I use in my writing, of differently abled, but working with communities of people who have disabilities, it's using that person first language until you know how they choose to identify. I have a friend who calls himself the autistic pastor, right? So he's very aware of his autism and he wants people to know, and he's not ashamed of it. And that is great. But until you know that person,
Yeah.
you need to figure out, maybe I should just call him a person and not necessarily
Yeah.
put a, a diagnosis with. I just wanted to add that in there. That may have been random, but I wanted to make
No,
sure
I
we
think that's
didn't miss out on why
yeah,
we're
I think that's
friendly.
important. And I think that's with all inclusion because even being African American, not everybody likes African American, right? It's like is ask, how you would like to be addressed, how you like to be considered, um, as the relationship is building. And so I think as we're drawing to a close in our conversation, one of the things, because we've had a chance to talk about this before, can you share kind of your theological perspective in doing this work in ministry?
I think for me, it is a call for all of us to be like
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. It is a call for us to bring those who have been pushed to the margins back to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I do identify a lot with the David text and Mephibosheth. So David was close to Jonathan, and Jonathan had a son named Mephibosheth. So when Mephibosheth was a very small child, he was an able-bodied child. When the palace was being invaded, his nurse, his aide, picked him up to run with him to take him to safety. It was in her attempt to protect him that he became disabled. Right. So it's her attempt to protect that now causes him a physical disability. He's removed from the palace and he's taken, and his life takes a different avenue. And then we find him later in the text when David is sitting around going, is there anybody left out of Jonathan and Saul's family? And one person, his servant says, there's one, he's lame, but there's one. And David says, we'll go get him. It is not until Mephibosheth is back into the palace and at the table in community that you even know his name. His name is never called until he's back at the table. I think that for me, from Old Testament to New Testament, we are called to bring people back to the table and to say their names because they matter and they have a story and they have a purpose. So for me, it's just who we're supposed to be.
Mm. Amen. I don't think there's any other way to end with that statement. Just is that so it is our hope with this conversation today that more people are willing to become more radically inclusive, radically welcoming, and being prepared whether or not they think that someone is differently able in their congregation or not. So hopefully there's a pastor, there's a Sunday school teacher, there's a family that understands that for CBF and CBF churches, we are on this journey to become radically inclusive and radically welcoming. So thank you, Reverend Dr. LaTonya Penny, for this conversation today.